Welcome everyone to today's workbook discussion on Zoom. Welcome also to all who join us later by watching or listening to this recording. I'm Laura Fenimore, the Chief Development Officer and Volunteer Coordinator with the Foundation for Inner Peace, the scribe authorized publisher of A Course in Miracles. We really appreciate your partnership with the Foundation. And if you want to learn more about the Foundation or A Course in Miracles, please visit ACIM.org. If you feel inspired to make a love offering, please visit ACIM.org, and at the top of the page, you will find the word donate. All donations support the work of the Foundation. Each session will be delving into a discussion of the workbook lessons in A Course in Miracles led by a moderator team of volunteers that work with the Foundation. What does discussion mean? In our gatherings here, we welcome the Holy Spirit to join us. Through this presence, our meeting becomes a joining of equals to commune with the Holy Spirit's guidance to experience miracles together. Some of the moderators here also support our social media channels, and if you'd like a list of FIP resources, please email support@acim.org, and we'll be happy to share the resource list with you. Now let's begin our discussion.
And I think Johanna will just bring up the guidelines here. So for our Tuesday meetings, we come with empty hands and willing hearts to share in the purpose of remembering love. We'll focus on the scribe authorized version of A Course in Miracles. And what we will do is we'll share from our experiences with kindness, humility, and respect for every path. No preaching, no correcting, only offering the light that's coming through us. We choose love over fear, and if disturbances arise, we will meet it as a call for love and protecting the peace of the circle. We welcome the Holy Spirit into joining us, trusting that every encounter is holy. This session is recorded, and your presence is your permission. And with that, I'm going to read the introduction as an opening prayer, the introduction of the text, and then we will go into we'll go on to the lesson 151. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And with that, we'll come back to our lesson. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a recap on the first couple paragraphs that I think you started with last week. And then from there, we've got 4 people to read a paragraph each, and we'll start with paragraph 3 and then read on from there. So the first, the lesson 151 is all things are echoes of the voice for God. And the first sentence is no one can judge on partial evidence. When we're only dealing with partial evidence, we're going to deal with doubt because we are uncertain. And then what happens is we become defensive for the positions that we have taken. And if you can scroll to the next paragraph, please. So we don't seem to see the doubt. We don't seem to doubt the world we see. And we use our body's eyes. We use our hands and our ears that deceive us. Our senses are not complete because they only give us partial information. And so it's really important that when when those things are coming up for us, that we are getting faulty witnesses, they're not complete, and they underline the doubt again that we choose a lot of times to defend. So with that in mind, the first, I think it was Karina, can you start reading?
Sure. Okay, paragraph 3. How can you judge? Your judgment rests upon the witness that your senses offer you. Yet witness never falser was than this. But how else do you judge the world you see? You place pathetic faith in what your eyes and ears report. You think your fingers touch reality and close upon the truth. This is awareness that you understand and think more real than what is witnessed to by the eternal voice for God himself.
Thank you. Tanya?
Can this be judgment? You have often been urged to refrain from judging, not because it is a right to be withheld from you. You cannot judge. You merely can believe the ego's judgments, all of which are false. It guides your senses carefully to prove how weak you are, how helpless and afraid, how apprehensive of just punishment, how black with sin, how wretched in your guilt.
Peter?
This thing it speaks of and would yet defend, it tells you is yourself. And you believe that this is so with stubborn certainty. Yet underneath remains the hidden doubt that what it shows you as reality with such conviction it does not believe. It is itself alone that it condemns. It is within itself it sees the guilt. It is its own despair it sees in you.
Thank you. And Philip?
Hear not its voice. The witnesses it sends to prove to you its evil is your own are false, and speak with certainty of what they do not know. Your faith in them is blind, because you would not share the doubts their Lord cannot completely vanquish. You believe to doubt his vassals is to doubt yourself.
Thank you.
Yet you must learn to doubt their evidence.
We'll hold on for a moment.
Oh.
We'll just do those first 4 paragraphs for now. Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
This in this up to the end of paragraph 6, we're really what the course is doing is providing us with the problem. So we'll take a few moments just to discuss how we embrace the problem from ourselves and from our own experiences, and then we'll move on to where the solution starts in paragraph 7. So with that in mind, Karina, since you started, is there anything from the paragraph that you read in paragraph 3 that jumps out for you?
Yes, I love that you place pathetic faith. Yeah, I like that description, pathetic. Just trusting in your senses instead of using your God mind. And I like it. It also says your witnesses are never falser than this. So it's telling us so clearly that the faith that we place in it is so false. So that's nice to know. That's nice to hear again. Sure. Well, that's about it. But I really love the other paragraphs also. I was doing a lot of underlining, like very clear, and I just want to share that just the next paragraph says you cannot judge. I mean, it's just so clear, that's it. 3 words, there's no getting around it. There's no beating around the bush. There's no details. It's just, you cannot judge. So that's, and I know when I go to my God mind, I see it much differently. Like sometimes I get jealous of people, oh, well, they have this in their life, they have that in their life, you know. But then I see it with my God mind, and I said, well, you know, they're enjoying life. They're enjoying this, that, the other thing, and to appreciate that and to give them that love, um, so that I can feel it also, because then I can enjoy, you know, it frees me to enjoy my own life and to find that happiness. So, like this course says, what you give, you receive, right? So
Mhm.
it's that God mind always it gives me such freedom when you know. So I thank God for this course. It leads me there.
Well,
Thanks.
yeah, thank you. And our
Mm.
God mind is expansive, and we come to it with curiosity, absent of judgment. The judgment is what keeps us closed off. And your reference to the senses, I think we can all relate that, you know, we only see certain spectrums of light. We can only hear in a certain frequency. There's a lot beyond it. So anything that we would do, even what we touch and feel, is limited to what we've experienced, and that's not whole and complete. So, you know, when we recognize that, if we are to judge, all we're doing is all we're doing is partially, we're using partial information that's at best um, at best it gives us a frame of reference, but it is in no way complete to be able to have the capacity to really judge. So thank you, Karina. Tanya, did you have any comments?
It's interesting because the first place I highlighted in this lesson is in the paragraph I read. So sentence 4, you merely can believe the ego's judgments, all of which are false. And I think, I mean, tapping onto what you were just saying, Bernie, right? You don't know. And I think that's the thing with judgment for me. If I find myself going to judgment, which you know, is I'm in recovery from going through the course.
Are you a
Um,
are you a recovering judgmentalist?
yeah, I'm a recovering judgmentalist. Um, I think you know, when I'm able to sort of not be wound up in it, when my emotions aren't wound up in it, I think I really like the reminder that I don't know. Like there's so much I don't know, and um, you know that you know, going back to the senses, like I'm only aware of certain things that I see or hear or witness or whatever it might be, right? But it's not the whole picture. And you know, I think the boomerang of um, you know, if only somebody knew something about me, maybe they wouldn't judge me about something so harshly. And so I try to apply that to outwardly as well.
Hmm. Well, and that's a good that's a good consideration as well, because sometimes people don't know us simply because we haven't revealed what we would want to keep secret.
Mhm.
And that in itself is a judgment against ourselves that we're not willing to share something. We're not willing to be to be free to show who we are. So there's that's a good awareness.
You know, it's interesting when you say that, and I haven't actually thought of this before, but you know, I can be judgmental of myself when I'm being judgmental, right? But I think that we can also be prematurely or too conclusively judgmental, even in positive ways, you know, and that just came to mind as well, right? Like we don't have all information.
Hmm. And it's important to be discerning as well whenever we're going to share something. Or, you know, when we look, you know, are discerning on what where someone else might be. And, you know, your comment that, you know, if there's things that you're not aware of somebody else, you know, it's quite easy to be critical or judgmental. Our key again is to turn that into curiosity. You know, what's being disclosed and what's not, because the what's not usually has some good gems in there for us. So thank you. I appreciate that. Um, Is it Sage? Or how do you pronounce your name?
Saya.
Saya? I'll come back to you in a couple moments, Saya, if that's okay.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you. Um, yeah, so with that, Peter, would you care to share anything that came up for you in that paragraph?
So for me, in paragraph 5, it tells you it would defend. It tells you is yourself. So there's a section in the course called self-concept versus self,
Mhm.
and the self-concept is a function of the ego, and it's all the things that are wrong with us, all the bad that we think we've done. It's this whole false impression of who and what we are. And I think this is what this paragraph, this particular paragraph, is referring to. And yet you believe this with stubborn certainty. Yet underneath remains the hidden doubt that what it shows you as reality, with such conviction, it does not believe. See, the ego doesn't even believe its own bullshit. Pardon my French. Right? I mean, it's like, so this is what we're up against, guys. I mean, we have this voice that's constantly chattering in our head about how unlovable we are, about all the bad things we've done, how guilty we are. And most of the time, I don't, for most of my life, I never doubted that. I kind of said, oh, that this is who I am. And yet, a lot of the teaching that comes out of the metaphysics of the Course is to begin to understand that we're not, what he's somewhere in the Course, he says something like, salvation is nothing more than freedom from concepts. And I think the biggest concept is to be free of the concept that we have of ourselves, especially as a negative, in terms of our badness, as opposed to our goodness kind of thing. And so I think for me, that's what this is referring to. It sees within itself what it is within itself. It sees the guilt. And remember, it's this whole, this Course says this world was made mad by guilt. Its only purpose is to prove guilt real. So, and what's the opposite of judgment? It's forgiveness, right? Judgment and condemnation, or forgiveness and love. And so, for me at least, that's the way out of, and it's the way out of the self-concept, because the self-concept is so negative and so judgmental of ourselves that we have to project that out. It's too painful. And so we have to see it everywhere else. So I think that's what comes up for me on that.
Thank you. I appreciate the reference to the self-concept and the self. The self-concept is our ego self, our body self, that we are constantly trying to protect. And the self that we are would be the capital S divine self that needs no protection. And I'll just do a quick share. So spending time with my grandkids, my grandson is 8, and he was in looking for attention. He was constantly telling stories or things that were false with great conviction. And whether he says, well, I don't care if you don't believe me, but this is just the way it is. And he's falling, he's starting to gain a deeper and deeper attraction and attraction to his ego that, in times past when he was younger, it would have been okay, well, and it doesn't matter. And it's curious to watch him move through those stages, to see that develop. And again, it's good to be able to not have to be attached to him trying to be right and judge him to be wrong. So, when we can recognize in ourselves that we don't have to be judgmental, it makes it much easier to free ourselves from being judgmental from others. So thank you for that, Peter. Philip.
Oh, hey. Yeah, this is good. I was going to kind of piggyback on Peter and everybody. So hear not his voice. We've been listening until we got to course. Most of us have been only listening to the ego and fully identified with it, and put all our faith in it. So we only heard echoes of its voice, judgment, and all that stuff, every situation. And the ego is very frightened of us opening the right mind where we could hear the echoes of the Holy Spirit's voice. So the process of just forgiveness, undoing the ego, allows us to be quiet in the world and just hear the echoes of the Holy Spirit's voice. And it's quite a process of undoing the ego. But it's much more peaceful and loving life. And apparently the ego must doubt itself, right? He talks about the ego doesn't even believe. But we when we are only identified with it, we believed in it more than the teacher in our mind that believed that it. I think Wapnick says that it realizes there's something in our mind that can eradicate it. Doesn't really know what it is because it can't understand the spirit at all. But so yeah, the voice that speaks for God is completely disconnected with the ego, and all it takes is a little bit of doubt and starting to question, what the ego's given us. What kind of world I mean, when I got here, my world was not one that I wanted, It was conflicted and problematic and fraught with anxiety. And that's pretty much gone away now. I can walk through the day and hear the echoes of the Holy Spirit's voice, and the ego's really still and quiet. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. And yes, we don't need to be emotionally attached to defending our ego or wanting to believe that it's right. And then we can be humble and curious and listen to that voice within, or open ourselves up to hearing and recognizing what it has to share with us, what we get to share with the world, really. So thank you, Philip. Saya, are you back? I'll come to you now.
Yeah, this paragraph of the Course in Miracles talk about the senses and how deceiving they are. And this brings me to the core message of the Course. Only the truth is true and nothing else is true. And what senses report is not true. None of it is true. I remember when I was born, when grown-ups start teaching me words. I knew kind of where I came from, how the natural state is. And they tell you, this is a table, this is a chair. It was like cutting like slices into reality. Okay, this is that. It was kind of separating things. And my mother told me your first word was not mama, it was no. And every time somebody tried to teach me something, I said no, and I kept repeating no. And by the time when I started walking, there was a first funeral. And we were so excited as kids, and we were running around the dead person in the ground. And I was fully aware of what happened. Actually, I would dare to say even more than people around me, although I was almost a baby. And they told me, don't be happy, don't run around, and don't be so joyful. Until the grown-ups, I didn't listen, um, they hold me by the shoulders down. You have to be sad. Indoctrination. And nobody believed anything I told them, still to this day. So the point here is that everything that senses report us, it's so believable because it feels it's so true. And if I did not have this experience, I would fully 100% believe that what senses report is true. And that's why I also study the Course in Miracles, because somehow in the back of my head, I know that this is not the real reality. But when you talk to people and maybe want to have a deeper conversation, they decide you're crazy. but I somehow know that it's hard for me to even comprehend people who do not have a tool like A Course in Miracles. How do they flow through life? Because if I did not have this understanding early in life, I don't think I would believe Course in Miracles. Honestly, I would not. So it's really, I think the hardest part here is to not convince, but convince yourself that what senses report is not real because we feel it, just like in dreams. You can dream anything, that you fly, fall in love, anything, and if you fall, it hurts, and it really hurts. And it's the same mechanism in the mind that generates dream as this reality, but nobody gets it. I don't get anything here either because, yeah, I don't really get anything. I just wanted to share my experience and this part of the Course in Miracles that states that everything that senses report isn't true comes down to the core of the message that only the truth is true and nothing else is true.
Thanks, Aya. That is a brilliant your awareness even at childhood. We're born as expressions of love, and it is, that's the truth of what we are. And for you to be able to recognize that and still be able to remain and hold on to that, those thoughts are really, really incredible. And one thing that I've come to understand is that as a child, we tell children no, and every time we hear the word no, it takes us further away from God. And there's a section, and I can't tell exactly where it is, maybe chapter 5 or chapter 7, but there's a section that refers to that the when there's dissonance or disharmony, that it takes us away from our true self. And as a child, continually hearing that, and for you, if that was the first word that you shared, that would have been because that was what was so present in your surroundings. And to not be attached to the no kept your connection. And so if you can rely on that more so than your senses, then it's a brilliant way to continue on. And other people that are caught up in their nose, that they distance themselves. That's their journey, and you can keep shining your light. So not being attached to your senses and just shine that light that you're born with. So thank you for bringing that out and sharing all of that. Andrew.
Thank you. I hope this is relevant. Twice in my adult life, I was called to be a juror, once for a murder trial and once for wire fraud. And both times we convicted the perpetrators. Uh, I wasn't aware of the Course of Miracles at that time, but it occurs to me that as our civic duty, sometimes we have to judge. One ego has to judge another, and follow the judge's recommendations. Excuse me. Well, I think all we can do in a situation like that is, follow the instructions of the law of the land, and inwardly love the person who we're convicting and love the person who had the crime committed against them. I think that's the only way to deal with that. Fortunately, I'm past the age where I have to be a juror. I won't do that again. But just wondering if anybody had thoughts on that. Thank you.
Does anybody have a thought for Andrew and Tanya?
It's interesting, Andrew. I did jury duty 5 years ago now, the one and only time. And I had a similar experience that we convicted the accused. And it was hard. It was hard to make the decision. And I remember, it was a domestic violence case, and there was both physical and sexual violence that was part of it. So it was like a hard case to listen to and a lot of hard, you know, incidences that were described. And they were pretty young. They were probably in like their early 20s. And, I was a teacher for a long time and saw similar kind of behavior with adolescents in high school. And, it's not that big of a leap, in terms of age and sort of still a big developmental stage of life. And I remember thinking like, it's unfortunate that the laws are so set up a certain way, right? I mean, and I think that we, we live in a flawed world. That might be oversimplifying, right? But the legal system is part of it, and there's things that are flawed, and we don't have. I think the legal system actually is a great example of how we draw clear lines around things sometimes, and they're not that clear. And we're here in the course, and we're existing in this place that isn't, that we're finding the, I don't know, the good. Within all that lack of clarity. But I wanted just to echo that I had a similar experience, where it's like this person's being convicted. I felt a really like big responsibility. I could see the trajectory being quite negative for his life. And I thought that it was really unfortunate that this was the outcome, even though I was part of it.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments to add for Andrew?
My hand's up.
Okay, I'll go with Megan as well, and then come back to you, Uma.
Go ahead and have Uma go first because I was going to say something after I talked about the court system.
Okay, so go ahead, Uma.
No, I'm responding to the court system. I know a couple of people. Actually, one lovely lady had her son's best friend murdered him on Christmas Day. I think it was an accident, but she was totally in forgiveness. She somehow knew her son would get killed, and she had such trouble. She'd call me because people would not understand her position. And then quickly another one. This was a course lady. She'd been raped twice, and both times she called her mother, had a pity party, called the cops, reported it, blah, blah, blah. Felt really shitty. The third time it happened, she's in her car. A guy reaches in, opens, she just parked, opens the door, rapes her, and she decides to do something different. She said, God loves you. It's the only thing she said to him. When he was done, he said, thank you, and left. She didn't call the cops. She didn't call her mother. She didn't have a pity party. She felt okay. She called some friends and prayed for the perpetrator.
Thank you, Uma.
Yeah,
That's
the point
amazing.
being, by not judging him, she saved herself from feeling bad. I don't know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I bet it never happened to her again either. She handled it. That's
Yeah.
great, Uma.
But and there was Ram Dass shared a story about um a man who was struggling with forgiveness for 5 years. His daughter was murdered, and it took that long to go and see the perpetrator. And it was he came to the realization that he needed to see the perpetrator, not because he not to uh, not to validate or give credit to the perpetrator, but for him to free himself in forgiveness so that he didn't carry the angst and the hurt. And sometimes what's most loving is not always nice. And if it is a matter of somebody being convicted and needing to go to jail, there is an opportunity there at times for them to look at their behavior and make a change where they might not if they're continually getting away with something that doesn't serve them. So in this case, when it comes to the laws and laws of the land, it's there's discernment, and sometimes what's loving might be unpleasant, but it's still important that we recognize that we are judging, we're not judging them as the sum of their actions, rather as their spirit self. So we can move on and they can move on into the potential for healing and going beyond it. If we stay in judgment, we at that point, what we do is we perpetuate the falsehood and we perpetuate the fear. So thank you for all your comments on that. Did you have
Yeah.
something else, Uma?
I just want to say, let's not forget Nelson Mandela. When he got out, this lady was in a group with the policeman that had murdered her son and her husband, and she was in forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Go sweep up enough of my husband, I can give him a decent burial, and come give me a hug, and come to my house every week and give me a hug." The cop stood up and fainted.
Yeah. So yes, it is applying forgiveness to our attachments to all of that. And in that we get to make connections that have some deep meaning. So thank you. Megan.
I'm not going to talk about the court case I was a juror for because it's I feel like the story that I want to tell now is a little bit different because I want to remind people that the laws are guardrails. They're not absolutes. They don't make people better. They try to keep the society at large in line, a large society to find out where you're infringing on other people. And to that extent, to the degree that we, the people, agree that the laws are working, they work. To the degree we don't, we have the ability to do something about individual cases, entire court cases, the entire system. We get that choice. So I'd like to just remind people that it's not a system that doesn't have us as players. And so then I wanted to talk about a girl who she was driving down the road. She had just gotten her license, and she heard this voice in her head saying, "Slow down." And she heard it several times, and she slowed down and she put on her seatbelt. And just in front of her, this little boy ran, and she killed him. Now, it traumatized her. The family, it was right in front of their house, so their son darted out in the road, got killed, and they didn't take this woman to court. They took their son's body in the house, and you find out like 2 years later, or maybe 10 years later, that they decided to have a viewing for all their friends with the body because everybody had seen this little boy in his prime, and they wanted to get them to be able to see him as he was for as long as they could. And then eventually the girl was really having trouble, and somebody got her back in touch with the parents of the boy she accidentally killed. And she said, "I'm so sorry." She said, I feel so bad." And they said, "We never were angry at you. Our house is on a dangerous road. And no matter what we do, there are always possibilities for accidents like this." And the fact that she heard this voice really told her something's going on, but didn't have the impact of stopping it. But I know how I was at I was going to Home Depot, and there were two men fighting in the parking lot. And I'm a little person. So, and in front of me was walking this woman who was yelling at them obscenities. And they were still fighting. And so I got out of my little car with my little dog attached to me. And I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought, I started yelling, "If you don't stop fighting, I will call the police." It's the only thing I have in my quiver, is to say I will call somebody who has better ability and equipment to intervene than I do. And so the one guy looked at me, he let go of the other guy, he yelled and said obscenity at me, got in the car and took off. So I was like, well, fight's over, I'm going in. And I go around the store, and I finally come back out, and I see one of the men still standing there. And I said, I went and tapped him on the shoulder and I said, I'm so sorry. I wasn't yelling at you. I was just trying to get the situation to stop. And he turned around and he goes, this is the woman. This is the voice. And I thought, what does that mean? So all of a sudden, a police officer came next to him and said, you're the woman who saw it happen? And I said, yes, I was. So they actually got all my testimony. But the point being that went to trial, and the person, the people who were fighting, one of them ended up going to anger management, which I thought was probably good for him. But it didn't turn into a huge legal brawl or somebody going to jail. It was just people taking care of people. And every time I see something like that, or something like the girl who killed the people's son, I recognize that we always have the ability, if we feel bad about a case and a person that we've sent to jail, we have the ability to contact them, to volunteer, to get our voices known, to talk to our legislators, to actually get involved. And I think the course has taught me that when I do, I make the world better on so many fronts, because I'm creating a world I want by investing my time into something that I totally believe needs either my investment individually as a person, as a case, or as a community. But I keep remembering that it doesn't work without me. Just like God, God is always saying, you can't do it. I need you. I need all you course students. I need everyone. And so does our society. So does the people. And all these laws are to help people that have fallen off. And I'm always trying to say, get them before they get there. Like, make everything you go to and everything you see a reason why you now want to help people before they ever get to these places. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Megan. Yes, it's really key that we recognize that we have the ability to shape what does go on around us, and shaping the laws, especially when we can align them with God's laws of what's most loving. And it's not about punishment. It's about setting things up so that they don't fall apart, and making corrections, not trying to blame, or not trying to be punitive towards anyone. So thank you. Rich.
Well, this all fits in very well to what I wanted to say. Towards the end of the book, there's a sentence that goes like, you do not forgive the unforgivable, nor overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. And there's other sentences around that sentence, but it's towards the end of the book. So it's interesting. What I want to share was, along those lines, here's something to me that's a little bit similar to what's being talked about. All right, ACIM says, lay not his guilt upon him, for his guilt is talking about your brother. His guilt lies in his secret thought that he has done this unto you. So what if somebody really wants to get me to do something that's not the will of God? It's not the right thing. Kind of like what you were saying, Bernie, about somebody is very passionate about something that is very incorrect. Like this is a real thing, right? Somebody's very passionate about something that is not true. So, what do? Right? If I'm susceptible to sinning with them, I guess I would say, like, if I'm susceptible to it, how exactly do I approach this? Because I want to stay, sinless, pure, and holy, perfect holiness, love, joy, will of God. So I'm not going to lay his guilt upon him. In his mind, call it a secret thought. In his mind, he has gotten me to do something that's not the will of God. It's not love, joy, peace, goodness. It goes against ACIM principles, etc. But in his mind, he's gotten me to do it. But I'm not going. So I just made my own little sentence about it. Changed. I just wrote this past week. This was because I know, like, ACIM, like paragraphs 3 through 6, it's all about don't judge others. And it's everywhere in this book. Don't judge others in various ways is everywhere in this book. But what if somebody is really trying to get you to do something that's not the will of God? It doesn't seem to address that much. But I'm going to say that my sentence about that is, if I'm looking at somebody, right, and they want to get me to do something that's not the will of God, your guilt, like as if I was addressing this person, your guilt lies in your delusion that you believe you have done this to me. In other words, you have done this, you have made me do this ego thing. That's your delusion. But I'm not going there because I understand what truth, love, and goodness and will of God are about whatever the subject is. And I'm not going there. So I think that idea, I just wanted to bring that one into the whole thing about judgment.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. And I like the way that you've addressed that, because when we are looking at somebody else as guilty, what we're doing is we're actually taking on the guilt that we're projecting on them. And there's a place in the course where it says every situation is a loving situation or a call for love. So we have the opportunity to come back to a loving place when we recognize or are going to accuse somebody of being guilty. We can understand that they are guiltless in their spirit self and their true self. And from there, that's a way to start offering healing and rectify the problem to begin with. So thank you, Rich. Tanya.
Just tying back to the conversation around law and breaking the law and things like that. I worked for a while in supporting something called restorative justice. I don't know how many of you have awareness of it. It's rooted in the criminal justice. Sorry, it's rooted in First Nations cultures, like globally, have applied this, and it's a focus on community and restoring relationships and sort of like with a focus on healing, the harm that was caused. So like our regular justice system is focuses on like these punitive consequences, like these arbitrary, okay, you did this and we're going to do this, and it's this sort of like um simplified way to categorize what's done wrong and what the an appropriate punishment is. But if any of you are interested and look it up, like you'll see that there's you can have both punitive consequences and create restoration. And I think some of the people that shared some of those stories here, and I'm forgetting who it was. I'm sorry. But I think it aligns very much with the course, that there's a focus on love, there's a focus on loving everyone and a forgiveness that's part of that. And not entirely lieu of other consequences that might exist that are necessary.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tanya. And sometimes what somebody might reckon or see as a consequence can actually be healing and helpful. And that's how I understand restorative justice, and had an opportunity to sit in on a couple circles around that. And it does the focus is on how we build and restore relationships. How do we be in that place of relationship with others? So thank you. Sora.
So before, um, there was discussion about no, and no could block the universe. And in my experience with the Course, sometimes God's answer is no. And then, like I just found the line, like, we cannot judge. So I remember my first marriage was ending, and it was obviously was ending. Um, but I kept praying because I wanted to save it. Like, I want to save this marriage. I want to save, like, and show me how to save this marriage. And if I only loved more, the marriage would be saved. And I was new to the Course, but I was listening for guidance. And so it took a tarot card reading um, by the man who was to become eventually my second husband, who's in the cards. It was so clear, no. The question was, can this marriage be saved? And the answer was no. And so that comes back to I can't judge anything. And it also comes down to the foundational concept of the Course, which is trust. Like, okay, if this is to end, there's going to be something else. And what is will God leave you comfort, at the end of the workbook, I will not leave you comfortless. And like, because ending marriage, brought up some stuff. And this would all happen a long time ago. But God will never leave you comfortless. So, so trust. And like I said, the tarot cards were right on with what they said. No. So that's all I want to add. No, no can be an okay thing and a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, the NO can come to KNOWING, the no to knowing. And when we're
Right.
looking, just because something is ending doesn't mean that when we take the lesson from it, we come to the greater good. Then we'll look for the greater good out of the experience. And
Right.
we can transition beyond it. So thank you, Sora. And next, so we're dealing with the problem this week. Next week we'll start into the solution in this lesson. Go ahead, Uma.
Oh, hey, thank you so much. I'm dealing with an issue, and I just realized I can deal with it with bringing love to the person instead of punishment. That's very nice to hear. And the reason I raised my hand again is because right before this Zoom meeting, I called Philip and I said, "Look, if you're standing there and someone runs into your car, you're going to forgive him. You're going to ask him to pay for the damage." And then I realized while I was asking him that he's going to ask the Holy Spirit what to do in every single case.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And what's most loving may involve somebody else taking things on. Um, we have to include, when we consider what's most loving, we have to consider ourselves as part of that equation. It's not just what might be nice or pleasant for others, but we've got to consider what's loving for ourselves as well. So thank you, Uma. Saya.
I would like to remind us ourselves back to the teachings. There is only one here. We are experiencing only ourselves here. This is what I tell myself every time when it comes to heavy things like heavy forms of violence and incest. Um, there's only one here. So we are not judging other people, not because we are good people, but because we understand the mechanics behind of what is going on here. And maybe some people would judge my statements right now. Oh, Shaya, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I've been also through heavy forms of physical violence, and also these sexual things are within my family. And my sister is continuing. She has kids, family tradition, and they drew me to court because I'm blood related and involved. However, coming back to the core of the teachings, there is only one here. We are experiencing ourselves here. So, how can you judge if God doesn't judge? Who are you to judge? And I know this is harsh because I also have to give statements to the court, so I'm aware of the laws and these things. But always, I remind myself every single day because I happen to forget all the time. Only what is true only the truth is true, and nothing else is true. And I always remind myself. I try as many times throughout the day besides those the lessons each hour. Um, you are playing with your own consciousness here. So, no matter how heavy form of quote unquote criminal, you really cannot judge. And even when judgment arises in my mind, which they do, I tell myself, baby, you haven't figured out your own path. How can you judge other people's paths, whatever they do? Yeah, I just wanted to share this back to the teachings that we are playing with our own consciousness here.
Thank you, Saya. And that's a great wrap up and tie in for our discussion that when we judge, if we're being judgmental, um, judgment came into place when we decided to be separate And it's only when we're separate that we judge. When we come to our oneness, there is no judgment. And, the last judgment is we are all love. That's what we are created as. That's how God created us and judges us only to be love. So if we can remember that, we have that oneness that we are. That's all we are. And we get these, in this human experience, we get to work through all the other chaos that our ego would present. So on that note, thank you everyone for being here, for the comments, for listening, for being here and engaging. I think this was a great discussion, and we'll close with just a real quick prayer. Dear God, we come before you. We thank you for the opportunity to be in your presence, to be present with one another, to have a discussion around judgment and where it comes from and what it is and what it isn't, recognizing that in any moment that judgment does arise, we have the gift of forgiveness to be able to forgive ourselves and move beyond forgiveness to the truth of how you created us and how you judge us as an expression of love. And from that, we say, I love me and I love you, dear God, cracking our hearts open, letting that light that you created us as to shine forth, inviting others to join us in this space of love where judgment doesn't occur. We just honor everyone on their path to come back to this place. We ask for your guidance on how we may serve, how we may heal, how we may gain clarity to best be and perform your will as we use these bodies. And we ask that you hear this prayer through the one child you created us as. And so it is.
Amen.
Amen.